Hello folks, hope you are having a wonderful day. It is time for some more Hobby Nightmares. I have a few things on the go right now. I've got a brand new, very professional 4K webcam. That's going to be good for painting tutorials and things. Not that I'm not great at painting, but it'd be nice to do some painting with you all so we can sit and have a chat and do things like that. If you want an extra video every single week just for you, then head on over to the Patreon, which is down below. If you follow me on Patreon at any level, you will get access to my weekly video that is just for you. It's just me talking about life and models and everything. You know, I like a one-man podcast, if you will, with me just chatting to you. If you want more of me, don't know why you would, but if you want more of me, that's where it is. Alright, fantastic. And my game's finished downloading for later. Wonderful. Anyway, let's jump in, shall we, to some Hobby Nightmares. We're going to do it in reverse this time. I thought, you know, we'll do the advice first, then we'd pop in, well, not an advice, more of a question, and then we'd hop into the main chunk of the nightmares after that. But this question is very interesting, because it's about Black Library. So, let's jump into it, shall we? This is from Robbie, and he says, "Howdy North, this is a question, not a nightmare, but it might be a good video topic. Whilst listening to your videos, you've mentioned in several rants how broken Warhammer lore is, how bad Games Workshop is as a company, and of particular note to me, how bad Black Library is. Okay. You've mentioned that writing for them is kind of awful, but also implied that Black Library writers are bad writers who write for Black Library because they couldn't get published elsewhere. This stance surprises me, as I enjoy some of the Black Library line of books, although I'm no expert on every single book they have ever published, nor do I know much about them. Behind the scenes, so to say. As an author myself, I would be ecstatic if I was given the chance to write for my favourite sci-fi setting. Writing fiction set in Necromunda seems like a dream come true, so I'm curious when you state otherwise. Could you expand on your issues with Black Library and why it would be a bad thing to write for them? Thanks for all your videos, and if you decide, thanks for answering, Robbie." Okay, now you can see why I chose to do this, because it is kind of a nightmare. I do think Black Library right now is a bit of a nightmare in some of the wildly varying pieces of books that you can get from them. Now, when I said, you know, Black Library writers only really write for Black Library because they can't write elsewhere, I believe I was kind of right to say that. Because if you look at any Black Library writer, you can tell me what books they've written in the mainstream, as in sci-fi books, fantasy books, books in the genre, and I'd be very surprised if you can name me one bestseller in the bunch. Can you? I don't think you can, right? They write for Black Library because they don't write anywhere else, right? These are not amazing authors. These are authors who have stooped to write for, you know, Games Workshop and have gotten in on the ground floor and built it up from there. That is what we're faced with here, right? These are not the cream of the crop writers who have been cherry-picked to have the honour of writing for Black Library. Do not get it twisted, okay? People like Dan Abnett, people like Aaron Dembski-Bowden, they started their writing careers and then very quickly became part of the furniture at Black Library, right? They're in there, they're writing away, right? These are not quite studio writers because they don't work for Games Workshop, they're independent writers at the end of the day, but they are a part of the furniture. They are the ones who are interested with getting things going, you know? Even people like Chris Wright and people like that, people who are actually decent authors, right? They only ever seem to write for Black Library, and that was my point, okay? A lot of these guys, if they tried to write something else, they would be in the pool with the big fish, right? They would be in the pool with everybody else, as in you and me and all the other authors that are out there. They would be in the pool with people like, you know, your actually good fantasy writers like Brendan Sanderson and the like, right? They wouldn't sell books. They may sell a few because of their name, because Warhammer people would buy their books, but very quickly when you figure out, okay, this isn't about Warhammer, you'd kind of lose interest, wouldn't you? You'd be like, okay, well, this isn't a Warhammer book, so I'm going to buy it, kind of a thing. That's what I meant when it comes to the fact that these are Black Library writers, right? And here's the thing. When something like Black Library and Warhammer grows, you now get the chance to go and cherry pick the best writers that you can. And this is what I think they've done with guys like Chris Wright, right? Really good writers who have now started to eke their way into Black Library. They started to pop up here and there. Fantastic writers. But there are still guys there that are there because they were there from the start. And Games Workshop does this across the board, by the way. The sheer amount of people working in retail who are just there because they've always been there. Are they good at their jobs? No. But they've always been there. So it's easier to just keep them in situ than it is to sack them and have that awkward conversation with them when somebody better comes along. This is how companies work verbatim, dude. Go ask anybody who works for a corporation. They will ream off the names of 5 to 10 people at their company who don't actually do anything. But they've been there since the start. They're like a legacy thing that just hangs on, right? Like a moss growing on the furniture. That's just where they are, right? Now, is that harsh to say that some Black Library writers are like that? Yes, it is harsh, because there are some good books. I mean, Dan Abnett wrote Eisenhorn, fantastic book series. He wrote Ravenor too, again, really good book series, but there are very, very, very massive missteps as well, okay? The End and the Death being one of them, the absolute bloating of the Horus Heresy being the biggest aberration to writing I've seen in a long time. The amount of useless nonsense books that are written by old heads in that series, people who should know better, tells me that they're given their head and they go, yeah, go on, you do what you want because you've been here forever and we can't say no to you, basically, right? You just go and you go write that. It's fine, no problem. We'll publish that, right? They are a very privileged bunch. Every single other writer in the world, even the big ones, okay, have to work to their publisher. Okay? There are very few who don't. I mean, probably Brendan Sanderson doesn't because he basically publishes himself these days, kind of. But like most other writers, you need to work to a schedule, you need to work for your publisher, right? And they will tell you, if you go to them with an idea that they don't like, they'll go, no, I'm not publishing that. That's stupid. That's silly, right? If the Horus Heresy was written by a publishing house, an actual publishing house, it would be 10 to 20 books long. Because most of those ideas, books like Nemesis, right? Most of these ideas for books that just go, you know, old earth, you know, books that go off the beaten track and start meandering about, you know, insert characters, author insert characters, most of those ideas would be thrown out by the publisher. They go, no, you're not writing that, that's stupid. Right, you can write that for somebody else. But we own the rights to it, so no, you can't. You're not writing that. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. Right? Games Workshop have no such qualms, which is why you have a Horus Heresy series, which is 60-odd books, right? It's ridiculous. It's overbloated because they don't say no to their authors, and their authors are in a very, very privileged position. Most authors out there have to beg to be published. They have to bend over backwards to please their publisher. Most of them. If you get like escape velocity, like a Stephen King or a Brendan Sanderson or whatever, right? Then yeah, you know, you have a lot of power. But most authors out there don't have that. They write what publishers like. What's going to be bought, right? They try and make a success of it. Games Workshop Black Library writers are very privileged in that they basically write what they want and they go, right, I've got this Warhammer story, yeah, we'll publish that, no problem. Another Black Library book, good. They'll buy that, right? And this is what I mean. Iron sharpens iron, and when you sit in Black Library and all you ever do is write Warhammer books that sell mediocrely well, and you're rewarded for that, you are not sharp. If you leave Black Library and you go and try and write a normal book, it will not sell and it will not be good. I would actually, you know, advise you to go on Google and look at the other books that other people have written when they've left Black Library, and you can see, number one, there aren't very many of them, and number two, they don't have very good reviews. Iron sharpens iron. You need to be in the jungle to be a good writer. You need to be out there, looking at your peers, working in the genre that you're working in, seeing where things are flowing, seeing what's hot right now. If that ain't you, because you've been cooped up inside a Black Library for decades, dude, your finger is not going to be on the pulse, even if you think it is. And that's what I meant by that, okay? Long-winded answer, but that's what I meant by a lot of these Black Library writers wouldn't really make it as a normal writer, right? As a normal author out there, you know, they're making good money on the writing now with Black Library. They may even make good money from side projects that they might be on, you know? But they don't release novels, though, do they? Right? Again, you know, that's where I find that. Anyway, moving on. We have River Rat, or Rat. How's it going, man? He says, Dear Mr. Exile, good day to you, sir. I've been lurking on your channel for over a year now, binging old content as I build and paint. Some pictures are attached. Do you have them on here? Oh, you do. All right, let's put them on. Excellent stuff. I'll put the Dread on, and I'll put the Chaos guy on. That's cool. I like that. Yeah. By the way, the armor color you're seeing in the actual footage here, that is an actual color. So I went on Space Marine 2, right? And I went on to try and find a color scheme that I could paint the Exiled Blades in, that you could play in the game and was actually paintable, right? Because not all the colours in Space Marine 2 are actually paintable by Games Workshop's colours, just saying, which is silly. But this one is. This one is. It's an actual... all my actual Space Marines are coloured just like this. So, yeah, it's actually there. Anyway, here is the... I think it's a Chaos Champion. Yeah, Night Lord. Lord of the Night. There he is. That's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. I like your lightning work. Your lightning work's pretty good. Well done to you. Let me shorten this guy down as well. There we go. I like these. These are good models. Anyway, moving on. The focus on mental health on your channel and the hobby is a wonderful niche to fill. Thank you very much, sir. This isn't a nightmare in the strictest sense, but I wanted to write it down. It is, I've read this, it is very much a nightmare. Put it into a bottle and cast it into the sea. It will get the weight off my own shoulders and may be comforting or influential for somebody else who may be listening. Most people have too little time for their hobby. I have too much. I lost my job right before Christmas last year. I'm sorry to hear that. And while I do have savings and unemployment benefits to fall back on, there is a lot of downtime between job hunting, taking walks, and looking after my 2-year-old daughter. The biggest problem in my life right now is my marriage. The issues have been there for a while, but now that I'm jobless, I've had much more time to think about them. Yeah, and she has as well, mate. That's the problem, right? A little info on me, the context. I am on the wrong side of 40. I have suffered from depression and anxiety since my late teens, although it went undiagnosed until my late 20s. I have a history of mentally abusive relationships because I had no self-worth. I was a prime candidate to be taken advantage of by a series of women who, looking back now, were self-centered narcissists with victim complexes. Whenever I would talk to my father about women issues, his response would always be, and I quote, "You need to be someone else." While yes, this sentiment is true, and you've expressed the benefits of self-improvement yourself many times, it was delivered with a condescending air that had the connotation of, and I quote, "People don't like who you are, and that's your fault, not theirs," unquote. For additional context, when I started dating my now wife, he said to me with a straight face, and I quote, "You're lucky you found somebody who loves you," unquote. Alright, so, I've had family members like this. Okay. I tend to fight fire with fire. I tend to just fire back at them whenever I don't accept shit like this. It's happened before where people have gone, how do I put it this way? Listen, I love my family, right? But every family has faults. In my family, for instance, my sister was considered. She will argue this, by the way, but like everybody who's been around me and her, with my parents, has said the same thing, right? She is the golden child. She can do no wrong, right? She's amazing. And be fair, she worked very hard in school, and I didn't. She was a very good model student. I wasn't. She was very conformative to rules and things. I wasn't, right? I get that, right? I wasn't as easy to bring up as she was. But at the same time, that then carried on to our adult lives then. So now we're getting... every single small whatever it is that she's done in terms of an accomplishment is celebrated and held up and isn't it wonderful, and anything that I do isn't just like not celebrated, it's looked on with suspicion as if I've taken a shortcut to get there, right? Which I haven't. I've worked bloody hard, but yeah, there's always an air of like, yeah, you're doing that, are you? Oh, okay, and again, my family loves me very much, but like, that's just how they are. The people who weren't like that were my grandparents, right? That's why I was so close to them. So my grandma was my biggest advocate. She was like literally, I'm not going to use my name here, so I'll just use North, even though my name's not North, of course. But, she was like, no, North's fine. He's doing really well. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's going to university. He's working his arse off to try and support himself so he doesn't have to rely on anybody else. He's doing really well, right? And she would step in. If anyone said anything about me in front of her, she would chase them out of the house with a fucking broom, right? She wouldn't have it. She was like, no, he's brilliant. He's doing really well. Like, go fuck off, basically. My grandpa was a lot more chill than she was in terms of that. But he was also very, like, he would try and build me up and give me really solid advice. Me becoming a teacher is literally because of my grandpa, right? He saw what I was like and the way I would talk about history and things, and he was the one who actually had me go to the local library with because his friends were doing history courses, and they invited me in there to start talking to them about Agincourt and, the Norman invasion and things like that, right? All these different things. And he said, look, you need to teach. You're wasting your life in bars chasing skirt. You need to teach, and that's what got me on the path that I am on now. In fact, the channel probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him saying, yeah, you need to get out there and talk to people because you're very good at it, right? So I get what you mean about, your dad saying things like that to you, because I had things like that said to me as well. And it's not fun. I have a similar, I would love to say I'm different to you, but I'm not, right? I'm very similar. I'm... How do I put it this way? Whenever I've been in a relationship with somebody who was brought up in a very harmonious household, they always tell me I'm very combative, in the way that I talk. And I've never noticed it. But they always go, like, why? Stop. Like, we're not having an argument. Like, why? And I never really got why I did that. And eventually I figured out it's because when I was living at home, every single thing I ever did or said, I needed to defend to the hilt, because it would always be thrown back in my face immediately, right? And when I'm with other people who aren't like that, it's hard to switch off that defensive mode. It's very, very, very difficult, I've tried to do it, I'm like, my missus now just like nods along, goes, yeah, right? And it calms me right down. She just knows how to handle it. She goes, yeah, okay, cool, right? Well, what are you going to do about that? Okay, cool, And eventually I'm like, yeah, I'm being stupid, aren't I? She goes, yep, but that's fine. I like your passion, right? It just, water off a duck's back, not bothered, But there have been many women in the past who are like, you're so combative, like, we're not arguing, why are you arguing? I'm like, and I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm arguing. Why am I arguing? Only with therapy and self-reflection did I realise, oh yeah, that's because of, when I was at home, it was literally battle stations all the time, right? Because anything I said or did had to be defended. If I had an opinion on it, or on something, I had to actually defend that opinion, like, it was like the Somme or something, you know what I mean? But, now I don't have to do that, and it's getting out of that mode. So I've been there, mate. Is what I'm trying to say, Rat. I've been there. I know what you mean. I know what you're doing. Anyway, tangent over. So on to the main issue. On one hand, my wife is a wonderful partner. She is good with money. Dude, you put that as number one. Good with money, a wonderful mother, and very stoic, logical, and level-headed. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. The first one that you put there, good with money, I couldn't give less of a shit if my woman is good with money or not. Right? Because our finances are separate. If we got at the same house, then fair enough. But then I'll say, listen, you pay me this every month and I'll pay for everything. Right? That's how you'd figure that out. So it wouldn't bother me at all. A wonderful mother, yes. Here's the thing. Alright, here's another controversial thing. A wonderful mother. That's your job. Sorry, I'm not giving you a pat on the back. That's your fucking job. You had a child, right? You are a mother. Your job is to look after that child and be a good mother, okay? It's like walking outside and breathing and going, aren't I a good breather? Yeah, it's your job. It's what you're supposed to be doing. Like, I take care of my kids. Yeah, good. That's what you want. Fucking medal. Really annoys me. He's such a good father, such a good mother. It's your job. It's the bog standard thing you're supposed to do. Be a good father and a good mother. Honestly. Number 3, very stoic, logical, and level-headed. Okay, that's good, but those are masculine traits. And if you're a man and you come home to, and you want a nurturing, loving wife, and you come home to that every single day, sometimes when you've come back from work, you don't want to have a debate about how the economy's going and how, you know, sometimes you want to just come home and have a steak and have a cuddle with your wife on the couch watching TV, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, all those things you mentioned are good, but basing an entire relationship on them is not good, right? That's not what you should be looking for in a missus, right? Because these are all either good at money, don't care, a wonderful mother, that's your job, that's literally bog standard, get out of bed in the morning, put 2 feet on the floor, sort of a thing. Very logical, level-headed and stoic. Those are all masculine traits that, whilst I do appreciate a woman who has them, I don't want to be confronted with them 24/7, right? Issue number 1 there. On the other hand, she is also uncommunicative, unaffectionate, and unsupportive. Right. I'll not add too many details, but there are 3 examples that highlight the issues. During the first month of our marriage, almost 4 years ago, I said something that either irked or made her feel like I wasn't taking her very seriously. She shut down trying to talk... Oh, my voice went there. She shut down trying to talk to me about her feelings from then on, and I only recently found out about this during a big fight we were having. Yeah, they do that. Yeah, they will hold on to that shit and then throw it in your face months, maybe even years later. And on the 17th of September 2023, you told me... Meh, and you, whoa, where did you get that from? I didn't say that. My gabbers were completely flabbergasted. Okay. As I feel like I have always stressed that I want to be supportive and respectful of her. Even now, after this has come out, she seems to take everything I say the wrong way or as an insult. I'll not beat around the bush. We also haven't been intimate in over a year. Yeah, this is over. This is over. I am now halfway through the email. This is done. Alright? This is finished. I'll carry on. She seems totally unattracted to me. Every time I try and go in for a hug or a kiss, her body language tells me she'd rather not. Fucking hell. I can count on one hand the number of times in 4 years she told me unprompted that she loves me. Multiple times I have told her straight up that I feel like she doesn't really like me or is even attracted to me, and that I don't like the way she feels. She responds with a silent hug, walks away, and nothing changes. Dude, she's saying sorry and not setting you right. She goes, yes, I'm sorry for the fact that I don't love you and I'm not attracted to you and I'm only with you because we've got a kid together. Here is a hug. Alright, I'm going over here now. That's what she's doing. Sorry, gotta rip that band-aid off. I'm gonna have to take a quick sip of tea. One of the reasons, fairly or not, that I lost my job was poor performance. From my point of view, the company I was working for felt very much like you say Games Workshop was when you worked for them. Cliquish and nepotistic. It was like somebody somewhere was unsatisfied with my work, so the pressure and negative feedback increased to the point that I had a mental breakdown. I missed a day of work because I couldn't get out of bed. When confronted, I told work what had happened. I was under investigation for 2 weeks, with no communication from them. I had a long-term project assigned to me, and then pulled less than a week later. I was pretty much suicidal to that point, and my therapist told my wife to take me to the hospital, whereupon I was locked in the cuckoo nest for a week. Then I was fired. I asked what for, and all they told me was, policy violation, quote unquote. As I said, this was a week before Christmas. No, I'm not bitter about it, why do you ask? Of course, man, yeah. Anyway, both before and after this time, whenever I would tell my wife that I was struggling with work, or that being jobless made me feel like a bad husband and a father, she would give me a reply along the lines of, yeah, or, well, maybe if you did this or that differently. And that was it. No reassurance or affection at all. When I have directly asked about this, and why she doesn't throw me a fucking bone of, I do like you, every once in a while, she says, well, you wouldn't believe me, so I don't bother saying it. Yeah, so that's a gaslighting reflection there. So, you know, I have friends who do this. I have friends who are very logical, right? Steady's like this, right? You might have seen him on the channel once or twice when we've been gaming together. He's very like this. He approaches problems very logically, right? and he'll offer solutions, very rapid fire. And a lot of those solutions are things that I've either already thought of because we think very similarly and I've already tried, or they are like, I'm encountering a problem that's very nebulous. It doesn't really have a solution, right? You know? Like if I said, oh, I'm really depressed, he'd probably say something like, well, why don't you go for a walk in the park? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Do you know what I mean? Like all these things, without getting to the root of the issue, we treat the symptom, not the cause, right? And we've been friends for so long that we're able to talk it through, and he knows when he's doing it, and when I'm getting frustrated, and he just stops. He goes, yeah, I'm doing that thing again, aren't I? I'm like, yeah, but it's fine. You know what I mean? You caught it, so, man, that's cool. That's good of you, right? You know, so, like, he's very logical, and I'm very creative and emotional, right? So I will react to a problem very annoyed and like, oh, what's this? Oh. And he'll be like, well, here's like 17 solutions. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that right now. I want to be frustrated about it. Then I'll work on solutions, right? I'm not some Vulcan. I can't do that, right? I've got to sit down and have a moan, and then I'll work through it. And that's my system, you know. But you know what else that Steady does, right? What he does is a masculine response. It's a man's response. Steady likes mechanics. He likes fixing things. He likes it when things work, and if they don't work, he will fix them. Once, when he was staying at my grandpa's place, right, he came downstairs in the morning, and because nobody was up yet, he walked around the front room looking for things to fix. Literally. And he found a table that wasn't quite set properly because the top was falling off of it. He went and got screws and got glue and spent 2 hours fixing it. When people came downstairs, he was sitting there at the table just, you know, and he didn't even tell us he'd fixed it. I was like, oh, this table's a bit more stable. He goes, oh, yeah, I just put a few screws in it. I got bored, right? He's a guy. He's a dude. And that's what dudes do, right? What you don't want, that's what you want your friends to be like. What you don't want is for your fucking wife to be like that. Okay? Yeah, you don't want your wife to be giving you... You're meant to be in a loving, reciprocal relationship, okay? Like, my missus will give me solutions to problems, right? But she's a nurturer. Because she's a woman, right? She will sit me down, we'll have a cuddle, we'll have a talk, you know, she'll listen to me rant, you know. She'll listen to me, like, she'll listen to me work through a problem. In a couple of stages, I'll be really angry at first, then I'll rant about it, then I'll be, like, really calm, be like, okay, right, well, how am I going to work through this issue? Then I'll focus on the issue till it's fixed and done, right? And she'll sit there and work me through all those parts. It's not difficult for her. She just goes, oh, yeah, okay, well, you know, what are we going to do about that, right? Because normally the problem also pertains to her because we're in the same house and things like that, right? So that's just what we do, right? She's very, very, very good at that. She nurtures because, dude, she's a woman, okay? Right? I don't want Richard Dawkins for a fucking wife. Simple. Very simple. I don't want a stoic philosopher for a wife. Okay? Yes, you're supposed to be stoic. You're supposed to take things in your stride. You're supposed to not let emotions get the best of you. You're a dude. It's healthy for you in the relationship. What you're experiencing here, man, is a lot of dissonance. Because she's acting like a dude. And you need nurturing. I'm sorry. It sounds really, really stupid and simpish, but it's true. You need a woman. That's what you need. She's not acting like a woman. You need a woman. You need someone who's going to come in and go, listen, you know, how are you feeling? You know, tell me how you're feeling. Okay, that's how you're feeling. Okay, and then you work on it from there. Right, you work on it from there, and eventually things do get better because you work out how to do it for yourself because she's supported you and you're there. That's what a partnership is. This isn't a partnership. This is two people who are cohabiting. Right? She doesn't give a shit about your feelings. These are two people. These are two friends who are cohabiting. She's acting like you're a friend who she happened to have had a baby with. That's how she's acting right now. Right? So here I am, stuck in what feels like a loveless, crumbling marriage. The hobby is my refuge, the only one I have. The 40k scene here is super competitive where I live. I remember a time I asked for a casual game right after the Sisters of Battle Codex was released. They were running roughshod over everybody at tournaments. I showed up with my lovingly painted Tyranid army of big bugs and running the Crusader Stampede detachment. My opponent showed up with a pile of grey sisters that had been quickly assembled from a tawny net list. He asked me why I ran big bugs, as they were a weak detachment, and then proceeded to crush me in 3 turns, as he invulnerably saved every single wound I dealt and tore through my Carnifexes and Tyrannifexes like they were nothing. Now, I have found a small niche of one-page rules players, and we have much more fun. It is the only bright spot in my life. I'm not sure what my future holds. It feels like my wife and I are in the business of raising our daughter, and that's it. It's a good business, but that's all it is. We are partners in the most platonic sense of the word. I feel like my marriage is falling apart and there's nothing I can do to hold it together. I have suggested couples counselling, but she doesn't want to do it. North, any reflection on your part would be welcome, but not necessary. I'm just glad to finally cast this message into the Imperium. That is the internet. Empyrean, yeah. Respectfully yours, Riverat. Okay. Alright. Okay. This marriage is over, dude. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, this is done. This is donezo. And you need to confront this. You need to say to her, listen, if we are in a partnership as co-parents of this child that I love very much, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's fine, right? But if we're not in a romantic relationship anymore, I'm going to accept that, okay? I don't mind living here. I don't mind sharing the bills. It's going to be hell for a bit, right? But I'm going to save up money, and I'm going to move out. I'm going to get out of here, right? Okay, get yourself a job. That's first things first, right? Can't be jobless. Here's the thing, dude. You're in a rock and a hard place right now. Because if she's working, you're basically dependent on her, right? You need independence. You need independence. I don't know how you're going to get it, because I don't know your life. But if you can get a job that doesn't make you miserable, that's step one. Get some wages in the bank, right? Okay. As I said to you in the email, look up, before you move out, look up what you will be paying her in child benefits, right? Times it by 0.25 or 0.5 if you're earning more money, right? And give her that every single month. That means she doesn't need to involve the government. You're sorting it out yourself, right? And you're also giving her more than she needs, right, to live on. Whatever's left is yours. Right, go and live your life, right? That would be the practical advice. There's the logical advice for you. Get a job, right? Or get paid for doing something. Even if it's not a job. Even if you've got a talent somewhere else, right? You do that, right? Whatever it is you need to do. I don't know your life, but work on it, get it sorted, right? Number one. Number two, do that financial stuff, and then the rest of it is yours, and you've got your freedom and things like that. Now, again, I don't know who your wife is. She might be somebody who wants to take you to the cleaners, or might be somebody who doesn't want to let you see your kid. That is something for down the road. But right now, if you're miserable like this, you need to say to her, I'm fine co-parenting. I'm fine not being in a romantic relationship with you, because it's clearly not what you want. And if it is what you want, then you've screwed it, because literally you've told me that's not what you want with your actions for the past several years. So this relationship is now over. Sorry, right? Okay? Then what you need to do is, if you want to be with somebody else, then, I'm going to be honest with you, I said this in the email back to you as well, not getting laid for a year is bound to screw with a guy's head, if you're in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, not getting laid for a year isn't such a big deal. You know, because single guys be single guys. It's a jungle out there, dudes, you know what I mean? For most of us, for the 99%, it's a jungle out there. That's not such a big deal, but if you're in a relationship and you're not getting laid, that would be a mindfuck, okay? I would bring that up to her. Say, listen, it's not all about sex, but we're in a relationship, and if you want all of the benefits of being in a relationship, and you don't want to give me any of the benefits of being in a relationship, then this isn't an equal partnership, and you need to fuck off. Like, we're not in a partnership. We're not in a relationship. If you don't want to be romantic, that's fine, but I am now free to do what I want to do. Right? I am now free to do whatever I want to do. There needs to be clear boundaries here on what's acceptable and what isn't. You're letting this woman just absolutely waste your fucking time. If you want your life to get better, the only person who's going to be able to do that is you. Right? Number one, end this relationship. If I was you, I'd be out of there. But nah, this ain't happening. This ain't working, right? I will cohabit. I will co-parent with you. I will make sure my daughter has everything that she ever needs. I will bend over backwards to get a really good job to support her and to support myself. But you are now no longer my fucking problem. Sorry. I want a divorce. You are no longer my problem. This is me, by the way. It's what I would do. Because I wouldn't put up with this shit. No way. You are now no longer my problem. I'm sorry. Like, we're not meant to be together. We're not. This ain't it, Chief. Like, you're not. I would say you're not the mother of my kids, but we have a kid together. You know. But you're not the one I would have chosen if I would have had a choice. So I need to go. Right. I need to. You know. This is why you need a job, man. You need the independence. You need to be able to say, I'm leaving. I'm gone. I've got some savings. I'm gone. Bye. Right. I'm going to go get myself a 1-bedroom apartment somewhere. I'm gone. That's what you need to do. Again, I don't know much more about your situation, but this you can't live like this. And a lot of people will have a go at me for saying you need to split up with that. You can't live like this, dude. You can't, because your kid is going to end up highly resenting both of you, because it's going to be a household where you just fucking hate each other. You can't. Alright, for the sake of your kid, you need to sit this woman down and tell her that this is over, right? It's been over for a long time. But if you're happy, you never know. Once you've said that to her and you're like, I will cohabit, but this isn't a romantic relationship anymore. I'm going to date. I'm going to do whatever I want to do in life, and so can you. Right? But we can cohabit. We can look after the kid together. I will get another job, and as soon as I get another job, I'll go and get myself a new place, right? And we'll work out child support, but I'll go get myself a new place, right? If you have that honest conversation with her, you never know. She might be like, oh, God, thank God you said it. You know? Thank God we can sit down and have that conversation. Thank God you said it. It might be a much happier household. You never know, right? It sounds to me like, you know, what's lingering over you is this romantic relationship that's not really romantic, so you're both getting really resentful of each other. That's what it sounds like to me. Have the conversation with her. And if she starts crying and stuff, don't listen to it. Right? Don't listen to it. Just move on. Right? Stand your ground. You can't live like that. Be selfish, right? You're going to look after your daughter. You're not kicking her out on the street. Everything's going to be fine, right? But you're just... Make official what's already there. You are cohabiting parents who aren't in a romantic relationship. Make that official. Get divorced. Sound as pound, right? I honestly don't think she'll be that bothered. Well, that sounds harsh, but you know, I think she'll be like, oh yeah, okay. Anyway, let me know what you do and give me an update whenever the time comes, because I'd like to know how that works out for you. So, moving on to our next hobby nightmare of the day. It is from Dan. He says I can use his real name, which is nice. He sent it to the wrong email address, but he's sent me in a hobby nightmare that sounds really, really interesting. Let's jump in, shall we? He says, Hi North, I hope you're well. Dan here, you can use my real name. A long-time listener, first-time contributor. I'll keep my praise brief. Love the channel, love the content, love the laughs. Cheers, mate. I've been meaning to write in for a while with two similar but not linked minor hobby nightmares. So here goes. Nightmare number 1. I don't consider myself an old greybeard, but maybe I'm kidding myself. My journey into tabletop gaming started in 1999 at my local Games Workshop in an unspecified part of London. This would have been 3rd edition in Warhammer 40k. You and some of your other contributors called these the Red Shirt Games Workshop days, and that phrase instantly brought me back to old school Games Workshop. The garish red, yellow and black decor, nu metal on the stereo, walls of blister packs, bright green battlefield tables down the centre of the room. It was a great time to be in the hobby. Yes, it was. It's like you're walking into like a battle report from White Dwarf. It was brilliant. However, it didn't start so well for me. I was around 13 years old at the time. 2 school friends and I became obsessed with the 3rd edition rulebook. One of them had acquired. We read it over and over in school until eventually we had no choice but to go into a Games Workshop and get some minis. I was the introvert of the group and hadn't come out of my shell yet, as people like to say. Both my friends went with Space Marines for their first army, but as I always do, and still do, I root for the little guy. The Imperial Guard were right up my street. I've dipped my toes into other factions since, but the Guard has always been there where my interest truly lies. If you have time, I've attached some pics of my current labour of love, my kit-bashed Mordian Iron Guard army. Dude! Alright, one sec. This isn't Morty and Glory, is it? I don't think it is. But I will show off your models. There we go. Morty and Guard, though. I mean, I might send these to him. Do you mind if I send these to him? Because I think he'd love these. Dude, they're awesome. Look at that. Dude, you did the eyes. I love the guy. Second from the left. Oh my god, that look, man. That's brilliant. It's like, hey. Oh, I love it. This is old school Warhammer, man. This is what it used to be like. Oh man, this is so cool. This is so cool. Oh, dude. Dude. Well, you certainly know how to paint. I'll give you that. You certainly know how to paint. Yeah, let me know. I'll probably send these to him. I think he'll be made up with these. They're really, really cool. Anyway, moving on. At the time, the new plastic catachans were the in thing for the guard, so over the next few weeks, I saved up, did some paid chores, got some birthday money, and bought myself various boxes of models, blister packs, and the necessary hobby supplies. After I had built up a small force, and some months later, one afternoon in the Games Workshop store, a friend and I were discussing our armies. The manager, let's call him Dave, overheard that I play Imperial Guard. Dave leant over the counter and interrupted us loudly. "Are you a Guard player?" he said excitedly. I told him I had just started, but that yes, I had a small Catachan army. Now, I can't remember exactly what he said next, but I remember it being a little cringy even to my 13-year-old self. Something similar to, "How about fighting my orcs? Weak meat sack humies don't stand a chance." At this point in my young and ignorant life, despite the cringe, the Games Workshop store manager was almost godlike, and for him to ask me to play a game with him felt like a huge privilege. None of my more outgoing friends had been offered this chance before, so of course I agreed to a battle the following weekend. That week, my friends at school were nothing short of jealous, and I, proud as a peacock. I constantly explained to them my tactics for defeating the manager's orcs horde army, and they could continue to simply remind me that I was going to get smashed. The following weekend came around. I packed up my one thick coat Catachans, bundled them into their original Games Workshop cardboard boxes with tissue paper as protection, and got the bus to the store. Not only was I the introvert of my gaming friends, but also the only one from a working class background. They were both firmly middle class, and so I, or my parents to be more specific, didn't have the cash to be throwing around on expensive Games Workshop cases or a lot of models. My friends both met me. Dude, I was the same with my cases, by the way, well into my university years, so don't worry about that. My friends both met me at the store, as they certainly weren't going to miss me getting stomped after how pleased I had been with myself all that week. We all went into the store, and Dave the manager was standing next to one of the gaming tables, chatting to a few of the regulars. Now, my memory tells me that these regulars were older teenagers, and were part of the store's clique, and that I always felt uncomfortable being around them. I will refer to them as the cool kids. I shuffled around the store somewhat, nervously to catch Dave's eye, hoping it would jog his memory of our promised catch-up. This failed miserably, so I walked up to him and mumbled, are you still okay for that game?" He turned to me from the cool kids and looked confused. "I bought my Imperial Guard," I explained, holding up the school rucksack I had in my hand. "Oh, yeah, okay, go get set up and I'll get my army," he said, as if he had barely remembered arranging our battle. He then proceeded over to the display cabinets, unlocked one, and began removing the beautifully painted orcs that I had studied countless times through the glass. I was even more nervous considering this meant nowhere near as much to him as it did to me, but I was still, at the same time, incredibly excited to get going. I walked to the gaming table he had gestured me to, with my friends flanking either side of me. Anyone who remembers Games Workshop stores around this time will recall that they took great pride in their gaming tables. They were the heart of the store. This one was a wide green plain with various rocks, forests, craters, destroyed vehicles and hills dotted around. It was glorious. Gaming mats were not a thing, as far as I'm aware back then, so the ground was textured, with gaming grass and everything painted and built to provide true immersion. I began to unpack my guardsmen from their tissue nests and place them on the table. At this point, it is important to note that I was still exceptionally new to the game and my understanding of the rules was minimal. I don't think I even owned the copy of the rulebook and relied on borrowing my friends. The only games I had played up until then were with said friends, and I have no doubt we probably interpreted the rules horribly wrong. In 40k 3rd edition, an army couldn't be fielded unless it had at least one HQ unit and 2 troop choices. I remember that rule. Yeah, that's literally what you had to get when you started, right? One single troop choice slot for the Imperial Guard was a platoon. This meant having at least 2 10-man squads of guardsmen plus a command section, which was another 4 guardsmen and a platoon commander. I simply didn't have this, and I just brought all the models I had bought and painted because I thought they looked cool. As mentioned before, I was restrained by the financial restriction of playing an expensive hobby as a 13-year-old coupled with my noob ignorance. Dave came to the other side of the table and settled down a group of orc boys. As he did this, the cool kids he had been chatting with the cool kids he had been chatting to stood to his side, ready to watch the battle unfold. As he placed some models onto his edge of the table, he glanced up at my army and said sharply what he was doing. "Is that it?" he sneered. Yes," I said, confused. "Where are your troop choices?" he said loudly and laughingly. I looked down solemnly and then back up at him, trying to justify my meagre collection of minis. Don't these 20 men and Ogrins count as troops in a Katajan Deathworld army?" I muttered. I was very wrong. Not only had I included a Lehman Russ battle tank, which meant my army couldn't be a Deathworld army, I had no command section for the platoon, making it incomplete. Dude, this is the kind of thing that I'm glad went away. Right? You know when people say, oh, it's too casual these days? Sometimes I agree with them. You know, it is a bit like that. But this is the kind of shit that I'm really glad, you've got a Lehman Russ in your army, which means it can't be a Deathworld army. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. My army's whatever I fucking say it is, alright? Kiss my balls. Fucking arseholes. I had no command section for the platoon, making it incomplete. He never heard the end of my sentence, however, as halfway through, he threw his hands up in the air, turned to the cool kids, and loudly interrupted. "The guy can't even bring a proper army, it's not going to happen, waste of my time." And with that, stormed away from the battle. Oh my god. Oh my god. You know where I thought this Hobby Nightmare was going? So I thought, because he was being quite jovial at the start, I thought you'd play the game and he'd either stomp you or you'd actually beat him and he'd get pissy, right? I didn't see this coming. This guy's a grade A piece of shit. To say I was distraught is an understatement. The cool kids standing nearby were sniggering in my direction, and that was sniggering, by the way, before any of you get any funny ideas, in my direction, and the whole store had come to a standstill because of the volume of what had happened. I tried to play it off coolly with my friends, but I could tell they felt very sorry for me. I was dying inside. I packed up my models shortly after and just headed home. At the time, I only saw this as my fault. I hadn't learned the rules properly, and I hadn't bought what was required. Now, as an adult with a good deal of hindsight, I can see it would have been very simple for him to just roll some damn dice with me. It wasn't a tournament, and I was never going to win regardless. On top of it all, I was a fairly new customer, so why not just give me half an hour or an hour of playing to keep me sucked into the hobby? Despite this initial horrendous moment, I had many happy years at the store, as it had other more pleasant staff, and I continued to give Dave a wide berth whenever possible. My favourite memory there being the War for Armageddon Grand Campaign, where my Commissar Yarek model headed up to the Imperium army, trying to fight off the Orc invasion, with multiple players facing off across a huge table. The Orcs were led by store manager Dave's Mag Gazgul Thraka. The Imperium was triumphant that day, and I felt at the time it was a small, but maybe insignificant, piece of revenge over Dave. Like so many of his bros, of us hobby bros, priorities and my teenage years suddenly and dramatically shifted. In short, playing with toy soldiers was out and big ass titties were in. I didn't pick up the hobby for another 15 years. Alright, I'm going to read the other part of this hobby nightmare because it's not very long. So, nightmare number 2. Fast forward to around 8th edition 40k. I was now an adult with a job and, most importantly, disposable income. I can't remember what prompted it, but I got the 40k itch again one day and couldn't shake it. In the new town I lived in, I found my local Games Workshop and headed in to see where the hobby was. As I know is customary, shortly after walking through the door on a quiet weekday, I was accosted by the manager asking what I was interested in. I explained that I used to be in the hobby and wanted to get back into it. He suggested an intro game, but said he didn't have time now and asked me to come back in a few days. I agreed, and returned to the store as requested some days later. All normal so far. As I walked in on my return, I had a horrible feeling of deja vu. The manager was stood next to the till chatting to a group of guys my age. They were very friendly with each other, so I assumed they were regulars. They all, including the manager, had watched me walk in and quickly went back to talking amongst themselves without so much as an acknowledgement. I felt like that shy 13-year-old all over again, but shook this off and went up to the manager and said, "Hey, I'm here for the intro game we arranged." Are you sure that was today?" he said dismissively. Yeah, you told me to come back today," I explained. "Come on then," he said, before almost literally dragging himself to the table like a moody teenager. You've not had the best of luck, have you? Now, obviously, I'm immediately not very impressed. The store was empty, apart from his little gang, and I honestly think he forgot about our appointment and was annoyed that I had interrupted him chatting with his pals. At the small intro game table, I chose to be the Chaos Army that was already set up, this being the Dark Vengeance set. He was Dark Angels. We got into the game quickly, as I had a firm grounding of how the game is played from my previous experience. He, however, could not have made it clearer to me that he was not interested in generating a sense of excitement or atmosphere from the game. Something from listening to your channel, I know, now, is the whole point of an intro game. It is, yes. The way I was trained is, an intro game to somebody, my trainer said to me, "Did you ever play the Dawn of War video game?" And I said, yes. He said, "Did you ever see the intro to Dawn of War? The one with the orcs and the blood ravens?" I said, yes. He goes, "Right. Describe it for me." So I described the intro. Yeah, it was really cool. The banner's there and they all die, but it was like heroic and it was really cool. And he goes, "Yeah, that's how you do an intro game." Like literally. Because I was puzzled. I was like, "Yeah, how do I do this properly?" He was like, "That's how you do it." Every game should be like that. You know, even if you have to bend the rules don't matter. The feeling of the hobby is what matters. The rules don't matter. Right? You're not teaching somebody the rules. You're teaching somebody what the hobby feels like to play. That's what you're doing. Try and stick to the rules if you can. But if they're getting in the way of a good time, you know, you should be able to ad-lib it, right? And get your way through it without, you know. The really shitty things that happened to me when I was playing intro games was that when you'd get some fucking arsehead of a customer come over and go, "Actually, that's not how saves work," or "Actually, that'd be a -1 to hit because he's in cover," or "Actually," and you're like, "Dude, it's an intro game, fuck off." You know, that would happen all the time. And I actually had to, like, on a busy Saturday afternoon, I told the store to be quiet, and I told everybody there, because all the regulars were there, if I'm giving intro games, sometimes I don't stick to the rules, because again, it's about the feel of the hobby rather than the hobby. Can you please not jump into intro games that aren't yours to give, and, you know, give me updates on the rules? I know how the rules work. I'm choosing to ignore these specific rules to get the game moving and give my customer a good time. Alright? It's not your job. Buy things. Anyway. Nearly every Games Workshop manager who's listening to this right now will be going, "Yep." Because they've all had that conversation with one or two people in the store. Anyway, moving on. He would periodically ignore my questions, moves or rolls to loudly chat to his group of buddies who were still stood nearby, or even at points complain to them when I rolled well. One moment I remember obliterating Company Master Balthazar with some fortunate rolls with the Hellbrute's Melter Cannon. He acted like a spoilt child over this. Clearly annoyed, he said condescendingly, "Oh, you got lucky there, didn't you?" Before I had a chance to retort, he turned to his little gang, still stood nearby, and loudly said, "His rolls are crazy lucky. I mean, come on. No way a Hellbrute could take out Balthazar that easily." Now, I don't know if I'm being pedantic here, but I distinctly remember being annoyed about two things. Number one, he knew my name as I made sure to introduce myself again, but he chose not to use it, simply referring to me as if I wasn't there. And number two, he twice had proclaimed how lucky I was in the game. I'm no tactical genius, but either way, I was suspect he was annoyed that I had destroyed his character as a newbie and wanted to cover it up under the guise of pure luck, which it was, of course. The whole game is somewhat based around luck. The game didn't last much longer. After that, I wanted it over with. I left the store, didn't buy anything, and never walked into a Games Workshop ever again. I soon found out that friendly local game stores existed, and found a much more welcoming environment in one nearby. These are nowhere near the worst hobby nightmares you have read out, but I find it strange that the only two Games Workshop managers I have encountered have had ego problems. Is this common in your experience, or was I unlucky and just caught both on a bad day? A bit of both. Bit of both. Bit of both. I mean, I've had bad days as a GW manager, man. Like, you know, I wasn't even a Games Workshop manager for that long, right? I was a staffer for a lot longer than I was a Games Workshop manager. But when I was a manager, when I had my own store, there were days when I would be, tired. And I wasn't my best. And I do, like, intro games that weren't the best, because I was just knackered, right? Just running a store on my own at the end of the day. I would never be rude to anybody, though. Like, what this guy did was just rude. Like, this is just being rude and arrogant and shit, right? This isn't right. I would sometimes feel bad going home, because I was like, I didn't give that intro game my best. And, I could feel the other person knew that I was just tired, and I didn't want to be there doing that intro game. Because it's just so hard to fake it, you know what I mean? But I was never rude to anybody. What this guy did was beyond the pale, and not very nice at all. But I've heard and seen Games Workshop managers do basically this. You said it wasn't like the worst of hobby nightmares. It's not, but it is the most normal bad hobby nightmare we've had in a long time. Right? This kind of shit goes on in every single Games Workshop store. You just get it, right? You get either managers who have a bad day, or you have people who are a bit too full of their own self-importance because they're how do I put it? Their store is their kingdom. You know what I mean? It's where they reside. It's their thing. So they do get a bit up themselves. But, it can happen. I mean, I had one manager in a training. Oh my god! When I went down for training, he was the fucking worst. He was so proud about getting rid of gamers from his store. So proud of the fact that he went in with a memo and said, "You can only do 500-point games in my store, and if you don't like that, leave." Right? That kind of shit. I just self-righteous with it, and you could tell going into his Games Workshop, it would be like that. Like the manager I worked for he would look down his nose at you when you walked into Games Workshop. He was tall. He was like 6'3", 6'4", and he would tilt his head back and look down his nose at you when talking to you, with a really snooty look on your face, unless you spent a lot of money. If you spent a lot of money, that head would come down, and all of a sudden he's your best mate. I fucking hated it, man. Just really... Anyway, these days, I'm more into the hobby side of things, as hopefully you could see from my Mordy and Iron Guard models. Only playing on the tabletop on rare occasions. I, like yourself, have become somewhat disillusioned with 40k's constantly updating rules. I have a young family with a full-time job, so I don't have time to constantly revise FAQs, rule balances, and point changes like it's some sort of homework. I don't remember this ever being a thing in 3rd edition. Either I missed it completely, being young and naive, or, as the internet didn't exist like it does today, Games Workshop simply released rule sets and let them play out through the edition, broken or not. Yeah, they did. The solution to this seems painfully simple to me. Write rules that are actually ready to go on release and only change the points value of units to address imbalances. If something is crazy OP, put its points value through the roof to make players consider if it's even worth taking. The advantage here to someone in my position would be that I can at least learn an edition's rule along with an army's codex, safe in the knowledge that they will not change for a year or two, after it's released, at least. Then, when I come to build my starter army, after not playing for 3 months, points are already updated on the Warhammer's army builder, and I can plan accordingly. Instead, I find myself swatting for hours, finding what minor rule or stratagem has changed slightly to play one tiresome 4-hour game of 40k against people who are relatively new to the game and only understand it as a win-all-cost exercise. Anyway, rant over. Thanks for reading, North. If this gets read out before June, I'm really looking forward to meeting you and other hobby chads at Exile Fest in June. I live in Ireland now, but I'm happily making the trip over. Bring on the dice rolling and beer drinking. Take care, Dan. Well, cheers, Dan. Thank you very much. And good for you for coming over as well. Bring your Mordians, dude. Especially if... I think I'm going to try and rope in Mordian. Mordian Glory to come down. Long time, he's a busy guy, but we'll try and get him down there. And if he is, we'll definitely show him your Mordian Guard army. I think he'll be really pleased to see it. Anyway, yeah, that is Exile Fest, by the way. It is coming up in June. I will be doing more advertisements on it as we get further into the year, as we get it maybe into, probably next week I'll start. But anyway, we're an hour in now, so I'm going to go. I love you a long time, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow for some more 40k Rantage, where we're going to be talking about painting, oh yes, and imposter syndrome. Alright, have a good one, bye now.